Hey there, and welcome to Family Revenge. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay with us for every twist and turn. Let's jump right in. The engine hummed beneath me, a constant drone that matched the restlessness I felt in my chest. I'd been driving for hours, the road stretching on and on, flat and endless. The car's air conditioning made the summer heat bearable, but it still felt like the kind of heat that seeps into your bones and makes you think too much. I glanced at the passenger seat where the small wooden box sat, worn but sturdy. It had been my father's. He'd carved it himself. Inside was the heirloom he wanted me to give to Darius. I could almost hear my father's voice as I held the box, slow, steady, like it had been when he spoke to us both. But the warmth of those memories had started to cool, fading out over the years as the distance between me and my brother grew. I thought about the first time Darius and I had built a treehouse together. It felt like we could conquer the world up there, just the two of us. But that was before. Before the arguments over money, before his phone calls that always seemed to end with him needing something. Money, help, my time. I didn't mind. Not at first. I loved him. He was my little brother. But somewhere along the way, that love started to feel more like a duty than a choice. I turned the music off, needing to clear my mind. The rhythm of the tires against the asphalt was comforting, like a lullaby. Still, my thoughts wouldn't stop. The past kept creeping in, reminding me of the days when Darius and I shared everything. We had each other, no one else. Now, I wasn't sure what we had left. This trip was supposed to be different. A chance to reconnect, maybe. A chance for Darius and me to get back to that closeness we'd lost, at least for a night. Dinner together, just like old times. I had to believe that it was possible, even if the distance between us had stretched farther than just miles. The thought of seeing him again, sitting at the table like we used to, made me ache in ways I wasn't ready for. I looked at the road ahead. There was no turning back now. The box in the seat next to me felt like more than just a gift for Darius. It felt like a last chance, a way to finally repair what had been broken, or at least make things right between us. But as I drove deeper into unknown territory, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I was about to find out things weren't as simple as I wanted them to be. I pulled into his neighborhood, and immediately, something felt off. The streets were too perfect, too clean. Every lawn was manicured, the houses all sleek and modern, like they'd been plucked from a catalog. I could barely remember the last time I'd been here. But this wasn't the place I had imagined. It didn't feel like Darius. It felt like an advertisement. I parked the car and sat for a minute, just staring at the house in front of me. The driveway was wide and empty, the kind of driveway you could park 3 cars in without breaking a sweat. There was no basketball hoop hanging on the garage like there used to be, no clutter of bikes or old toys. Everything was polished, perfect, like a movie set, nothing like the cramped, mismatched house we'd grown up in. I grabbed the box, my fingers tight around it, like it might slip away if I let go. I needed it to mean something. I needed it to fix everything that had gone wrong, that had broken between Darius and me over the years. The doorbell felt foreign in my hand, a hollow sound that seemed too loud in the silence. It wasn't the creaky old bell I remembered. A woman opened the door after a moment, and I froze. She was taller than me, thin, with a sort of cool, neutral smile. I could tell immediately she wasn't the person I was expecting. "Hi," I said, forcing a smile that felt wrong. "I'm Claire, Darius's sister. He's expecting me for dinner." The woman glanced at me, polite but distant. I wasn't sure if I should introduce myself more or if it was obvious, but she didn't seem interested in small talk. She tilted her head slightly, like something was off. Then, her eyes flicked down to the small box I was holding, and she raised an eyebrow, like it didn't belong here. Dinner already happened," she said, her voice light, almost too light. "Sorry, I guess he forgot to mention that to you." My stomach dropped. "What? What do you mean? I thought we were having dinner." I felt my face heat up with confusion. It didn't make sense. She shrugged, stepping back slightly like she was going to close the door, then paused. "Yeah, we already ate, but you're welcome to come in, I guess. If you want to, hang out for a bit." I felt the words crash through me. Dinner? Already happened? That wasn't possible. He knew I was coming. I gripped the box harder, like it could make sense of the situation, make him appear, make everything go back to how it was supposed to be. But instead of explaining, instead of telling me anything, she just looked at me, her polite smile never quite reaching her eyes. I could feel her tension, like she wasn't sure what to do with me. I I don't understand, I said, my voice coming out shaky. I. But before I could finish, she had already started to pull the door closed. Not even a goodbye, just a sharp click as the door shut in my face. I stood there for a second, the silence pressing in around me. The world felt wrong. The house felt wrong. The way she'd looked at me felt wrong. I was still standing on the porch, holding that stupid box, trying to breathe through the dizzy feeling in my chest. My brother's house, the place I thought we'd rebuild some kind of bridge. But now, all I had was a door in my face and a memory of a dinner that had never included me. I stared at the closed door for longer than I should have, the weight of the box somehow heavier in my hands with each passing second. My pulse was loud in my ears. I had come all this way, driven through hours of emptiness, and now, nothing. No dinner, no reunion, nothing. I felt the anger rise hot and fast, but it wasn't just anger. It was the sting of being forgotten. It was the slap of how small I'd become in this whole new world of his. A world where I wasn't even worth the time to explain. I turned away from the door, my fingers aching around the box as I headed back to the car. There was a weird ache in my throat that I couldn't swallow down. I didn't know what I was supposed to do now. I didn't know where I was supposed to go. I just knew I wasn't wanted here, not anymore. I slammed the car door shut and sat there for a minute, trying to steady my breath. My hands were still shaking. I could feel the weight of that damn box pressing against the seat beside me, like it was somehow a part of the mess I'd just walked into. The engine hummed quietly, the only sound in the car. I didn't even know where to go next. The driveway felt like a dead end, and now I was sitting in the parking lot of his perfect life, feeling erased. I ran my hands over my face, the coolness of my palms grounding me for a second. It was like I'd driven all this way for nothing. I wasn't just forgotten. I was invisible. How long had it been like that? Longer than I'd ever wanted to admit. I'd always been there for him. Always. How many times had I put my own life on hold for Darius? When he lost his job and couldn't pay rent, I was the one who stepped in. When his car broke down, I helped him out. When he got that stupid idea to start a business he couldn't afford, guess who loaned him the money? Hell, I was the one who helped him buy his house when he couldn't save up enough. I made excuses for him to everyone else, my friends, my coworkers, even Dad. He'd get all the sympathy, all the understanding, while I was just the one who picked up the pieces, always the fixer, always the one who came through. But where had that gotten me? In a sterile parking lot, holding a box that felt like a token of my failure. I started the car and pulled out, my knuckles white on the wheel. I hadn't even gotten out of the neighborhood when my phone buzzed. I stared at the screen, seeing Darius's name flash up. A text. Sorry I didn't mention the dinner. I didn't think it would be a big deal. Hope everything's good. The words were flat. No apology for the mess. No. Hey, I'm sorry I didn't think about how this would feel for you. Just a quick line, like he didn't care that I'd driven all this way and been shut out at his door. I stared at the text, feeling this simmering anger build in my chest. Hope everything's good. Like I was the one who had everything good. It wasn't even an apology, just an acknowledgement of how little he'd thought about me, about anything. I'd always been there, even when he didn't deserve it. But he couldn't be bothered to give a shit about me once in return. My hands gripped the steering wheel harder, my fingers aching from the pressure. This wasn't just disappointment, this was betrayal, and it wasn't the first time. How many times had I let him down easy, told myself it was just a phase? How many times had I let him use me, let him promise he'd get his shit together, and then let him slide back into the same old mess? I had done everything for him, and for what? So he could ignore me at the door and send me a cold text as if nothing had happened? It hit me like a slap across the face. I drove aimlessly, trying to push the anger and hurt out of my mind. But every mile that stretched out between me and his house, the worse it felt. Like I was becoming smaller with every passing minute. A character in a story I didn't belong to anymore. Like I'd been written out, erased, and this trip was just me still trying to hang on to something that wasn't there. The longer I drove, the more I realized it wasn't just about the dinner. It wasn't about the box, either. It was about a lifetime of little slights, of promises made and forgotten, of being the one who always gave and never got anything back. And today, I'd reached the end of it. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, feeling the weight of everything pressing down. My chest felt tight. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was drive. Drive and think. Because the truth was, I had been letting him take pieces of me for years, and I'd never once asked for them back. And now, for the first time, I knew I couldn't keep pretending. He wasn't the brother I had once known. Not anymore. I checked my rearview mirror and saw the neighborhood fading into the distance, and for the first time, it felt like I was driving away from something that had been holding me hostage for too long. I pulled into a rundown motel, the kind where the neon sign flickered in a way that made you second guess your decision to stay. But I was too tired to care. I grabbed the box from the passenger seat and made my way to the room, feeling the weight of it in my hands like it could somehow explain everything. The room was small and smelled faintly of mildew, the carpet worn thin in spots. I dropped the box on the bed and sank down beside it, still wearing the same clothes from the drive. My body ached from the long hours behind the wheel, but it wasn't just physical exhaustion gnawing at me. It was the exhaustion of having carried this weight for so long, not just today, but for years. I picked up the box, my fingers tracing the carved edges, and it hit me again. How many times had I done things for Darius like this? Sacrificed, given without question, always trying to show up when he needed me? There was the time he couldn't pay rent, his landlord threatening to evict him, and I'd stepped in, writing out that check when I could have used it for something else. He said he'd pay me back, promised he'd get his act together. He never did. Then there was that stupid business idea, his big breakthrough. And I gave him the money to get it started, believing in him even when the odds were stacked against him. It failed, of course. And no, there wasn't even a thank you, just the same empty promise that he'd figure it out next time. I swallowed hard, the anger I'd been holding in since the door slammed shut, threatening to spill over. But it wasn't just anger, it was the sense that maybe all of it had been a setup, a manipulation. How many times had I been the one to bail him out, and how many times had he just expected it? I glanced down at the box in my lap. Was that all this was, too? Another token of my help? Something I was supposed to hand over just to keep him happy, to keep things smooth? Something that didn't matter, because in the end, I was always going to be the one who gave, and he was always going to be the one who took. The thought made my stomach turn. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of years pressing on my chest. I thought about Dad, how he always seemed to favor Darius, no matter what. It was like he could do no wrong. Even when Darius messed up, it was me who got the lecture, not him. And I never said anything, just sucked it up and kept playing the part of the dutiful daughter, the responsible one, even when it felt like I was invisible in my own family. I hadn't realized how much that had hurt until now, how much I had carried, waiting for a chance to be seen. But it never came. Not from Dad, and not from Darius. They both had their own things, their own world. And I was just there, always waiting to be asked, always waiting to be needed, but never truly seen. I set the box down and ran my hands through my hair. I was exhausted, but I couldn't stop thinking. I felt like I had been running on fumes for so long, doing everything I could to keep things from falling apart, only to realize tonight that nothing was ever going to change. A deep, aching tiredness washed over me, not from the drive, but from the years of pretending things were okay when they weren't. The weight of all those unacknowledged sacrifices, the promises that never materialized, crushed me in a way that had nothing to do with my physical body. I lay back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. It felt like the first time I could breathe in weeks, even though I wasn't sure where this new awareness was going to lead me. Something had shifted in me tonight, something big and raw. I wasn't sure what it meant yet, but for the first time, it felt like I was waking up to the truth, and I didn't like it. But it was the truth, and no matter how much it stung, I had to face it. When I walked through the front door of my house, the familiar scent of my own space, coffee, old books, something like vanilla, didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like the place I'd been trying to escape, even if I wasn't sure where I was running to. But I was tired, bone-weary, and the last thing I wanted to do was sit around and feel sorry for myself. I dropped my bag on the couch and headed straight for the kitchen. The old drawer where I kept the paperwork was still where I'd left it, stacked with bills, loan agreements, receipts. I pulled out a few of the top sheets, my heart already beating faster. As I unfolded the pages, the numbers seemed to leap out at me, bigger than I'd ever allowed myself to see before. Credit card statements, loan agreements. The amount I'd lent him over the years was staggering. It had always felt like just helping out a little here and there, small enough that I could convince myself it didn't matter, that I was just being a good sister. But when I laid it all out in front of me, the truth was clear. I'd been enabling him. I stared at the total, the amount growing with each paper I flipped through, each loan, each credit line I'd opened for him, each promise he'd made to pay me back and never did. How many times had I told myself he'd change, that this would be the last time he needed me, but there was no change, no responsibility, just more calls, more excuses, more empty promises that I'd been stupid enough to believe. It wasn't just the money, though. That wasn't what stung the most. It was the fact that none of this had ever been about gratitude. None of it had been about him recognizing the sacrifices I made. It had just been him taking and me giving over and over again until it felt like I didn't even have a choice anymore. I thought about that last text from him. Sorry I didn't mention the dinner. Hope everything's good. There it was again. The same indifference, the same lack of empathy, the same pattern. I felt a cold anger rise in me, tightening my throat. All those years of me bending over backward for him, and what did I get in return? Nothing but the feeling of being invisible. Nothing but the weight of my own bad decisions. I grabbed the phone off the counter, my fingers trembling slightly as I dialed the number for the credit card company. I could feel the tightness in my chest as I listened to the automated voice on the other end. The steady beep of the hold music grated on me, but I didn't care. I was too focused on the decision I was about to make. When a real person finally picked up, I told them what I needed. No hesitation, no second guessing. I explained that I wanted to cancel the card, the one I'd opened for Darius years ago when he'd promised he'd get his life together. The representative on the other end of the line processed it quickly. But even as they spoke, I felt a strange kind of relief settle into my bones, like I'd just let go of something heavy that had been pulling me down without me even realizing it. After I hung up, I stared at the phone for a long time, letting it all sink in. I'd done it. I'd cut the cord. And yeah, it hurt like hell, but it also felt right. For the first time, I wasn't going to be roped into his mess anymore. I wasn't going to be the one picking up the pieces when he couldn't be bothered to care. I dropped the phone back on the counter and went to sit on the couch. The house was quiet now, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel empty. It felt like it was mine again. I wasn't waiting for a call from Darius, wasn't checking my bank account to make sure I could cover his latest crisis. It wasn't just the card I'd canceled, it was the whole damn cycle. The guilt, the obligations, the constant worry about someone who was never going to change. I'd been living for him, letting his problems define my life, and I wasn't doing it anymore. I leaned back against the couch, my eyes closing for just a moment, feeling the weight of the decision. The relief was bigger than I expected, but the grief was still there too. It wasn't easy. I'd given him so much of myself, and now I was finally taking it back. I wasn't sure what this meant for me or for Darius, but I knew one thing. For the first time in years, I was in control of my own life again. And that was something I'd almost forgotten was possible. The phone rang the next morning, cutting through the quiet of my house like a loud, jarring noise. I didn't even need to look at the screen. I already knew who it was. Darius. I stared at the phone for a moment, the sudden wave of tension rising in me. Yesterday, I'd made the decision. I'd taken control. But today he was going to try to pull me back in, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. But I wasn't going to avoid it. Not this time, I answered, my voice calm despite the tightness in my chest. Hello? Claire, what the hell did you do? His voice came through the phone, frantic, almost panicked. You canceled the damn card? You can't just do that. You know I was counting on you. I felt a quick rush of anger rise, but I kept it down. I had promised myself I wouldn't let him have control of this conversation. I told you a long time ago, Darius, I said, keeping my tone steady. I'm done. You're an adult. It's time for you to take responsibility for your own life. Are you serious? He scoffed, the disbelief sharp in his words. You've always helped me. Always. What the hell is wrong with you? His words made my chest tighten, but not in the way they used to. I didn't flinch like I used to when he sounded hurt or angry. I didn't feel that need to fix it to make everything better. For once, I wasn't going to bend. Nothing's wrong with me, Darius. Something's wrong with you, I said quietly. You've been taking from me for years, and I've let you. But I'm done. I'm not your backup anymore. The silence on the other end was thick, like he was trying to process what I'd said. Then he exploded. You're ruining everything. Do you have any idea what this is going to do to me? I don't have anyone else, Claire. You're my sister. You were supposed to have my back. The words were like a slap to the face, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I felt this weird stillness inside me, like I was finally seeing things for what they were. This wasn't about helping him anymore. It was about me choosing myself for once. Darius, I said, my voice low but firm, I've had your back for years. I've covered your mistakes, bailed you out, fixed your messes, but I'm not doing it anymore. I can't. He didn't answer right away. Instead, I could hear him breathing heavily, trying to control himself. Then the pleading started. Come on, Claire, he said, his voice softer now, like he was trying to coax me. I messed up. I know. But you know I'm trying. Please, just help me one more time. I'll pay you back, I swear. You know I will. I just need a little more time. I could feel the pull of his words, the old patterns kicking in, wanting to make it better, wanting to believe him again. But I didn't let myself. Not this time. No, I said, my voice steady. But there was a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. You've had plenty of time, Darius. I've given you years of my time, my money, my energy. And where's that got us? You're still the same, still making excuses. His voice rose again, sharp and angry. You're being unreasonable. You don't get it. You're throwing me under the bus. The old guilt crept in, but I pushed it away. No, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I'm letting you grow up. I'm letting you figure it out for once. I could feel him trying to shift gears, trying to manipulate me, shifting from anger to desperation. Claire, please, I'm sorry, I've messed up, but I need you. I'm not asking for a lot, just a little help, just a little more time to get back on my feet. His words had worked on me before, but not now. I'd seen it too many times, the promises, the begging, the same pattern of manipulation. I wasn't going to fall for it anymore. I'm sorry, Darius, I said, quietly but firmly. I won't help you anymore. Not with money, not with anything. You need to figure it out on your own. I didn't wait for him to respond. I just ended the call, my fingers shaking as I hit the end button. The silence that followed was heavy, but there was something else there too, something like peace. I leaned back against the couch, my heart still racing, but the knot in my stomach finally loosening. I didn't feel the urge to chase him down or make him understand. For the first time, I didn't feel responsible for fixing things. I had freed myself. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't tied to him anymore. The relief that flooded me was overwhelming, and at the same time, I was angry. Angry that it had taken me so long to get to this point. Angry that I'd let myself be pulled into his cycle for so long. But in the end, it was worth it. For once, I was the one in control. And it felt damn good. I sat on the couch, the phone still heavy in my hand, a mix of anger and relief buzzing through me. The conversation with Darius was over. Finally. But I wasn't sure what came next. My mind felt clear, but at the same time, like I was standing on the edge of something I hadn't quite figured out yet. I took a deep breath and grabbed my laptop from the coffee table, opening it up. It felt like something I needed to do, something concrete. I logged into my bank account, and when the page loaded, I almost couldn't believe my eyes. For the first time in years, the balance was mine, all of it. The loans, the credit lines, the promises I'd been sinking money into, it was all still there, but I didn't have to give it away anymore. I stared at the numbers, feeling this strange rush of empowerment flood through me. The weight that had been pressing down on me, the slow drain of giving, had lifted. I moved my mouse over to the Bill Pay tab, and without a second thought, I made an extra payment on my mortgage. It wasn't huge, but it felt right, like I was taking control of something that was mine. Something I'd been neglecting while I focused on everyone else's needs, especially Darius's. I sat back, letting the relief wash over me. But then, something else pulled at me. It was like a tug in my gut, a reminder of the parts of me I'd been ignoring for so long. I had spent so much of my life taking care of Darius, trying to fix him, trying to be the one he could depend on, that I forgot about what I wanted, what I needed. I glanced over at the bookshelf where my paint sat, gathering dust. The canvas I'd bought months ago still leaned against the wall, untouched. I'd always told myself I didn't have time for things like painting. Always told myself that helping Darius was more important. But looking at the old tubes of paint, I realized how much I'd let my own passions slide, let them fade into the background. Without thinking, I opened a new tab and searched for painting classes in town. I found one starting next week. A small class, nothing fancy, just a few hours a week to get my hands back into something I'd once loved. The moment I clicked sign up, it felt like a small but meaningful act of rebellion. Against the life I'd been living for so long, against the pattern of always putting my brother first. It wasn't much. It wasn't going to change everything overnight, but it was something. It was mine. I sat there, staring at the confirmation page, my chest feeling lighter. For the first time, I wasn't living for someone else. I wasn't planning my next move around what Darius might need or trying to pick up the pieces of his mess. I was finally living for me. A wave of guilt hit me then, sharp and quick. The kind of guilt that always showed up when I did something for myself. The kind that told me I should be doing more for him, fixing more of his problems, and not worrying about my own damn painting class. But the guilt didn't stay long. It didn't have the same grip on me it once did. I'd spent enough years in that cycle, and I could feel it breaking. For once, I wasn't sacrificing my own needs for someone else. I thought back to all the times I'd taken care of Darius, all the times I'd pushed my own dreams and desires aside, all the times I'd kept telling myself, just one more time, just one more loan, just one more favor. But that was over now. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about reclaiming myself. It was about taking back the pieces of my life that I'd handed away so freely without a second thought. And this painting class, as small as it was, felt like a first step toward something bigger, toward finding me again. I stood up stretching and felt this quiet sense of purpose settle in. There were still a lot of questions I didn't have answers to, but for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to have them all figured out. I could take things one step at a time. For once, I didn't need to rush. As I put my laptop away, I looked around the room, my eyes catching on the little things. My art supplies, the books I'd been meaning to read, the corner where I used to sit and sketch before everything got complicated. It was all still there. And now, for the first time, I was ready to make room for it again. The change was small, but it was real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was moving forward. Even if I didn't know exactly where I was going yet, I knew one thing. I was finally taking control of my own life. It didn't take long for the texts to start coming. At first, it was just a couple of messages, short and to the point. Hey, can we talk? I really need your help, Claire. Please don't do this. I didn't answer. I didn't even think about answering. But the texts kept coming. Faster, more desperate. He wasn't giving up. Each one was an escalation. A plea for me to come back into the fold, to fix things, to rescue him one last time. The words were the same as they'd always been. I'm drowning here. Please, I can't do this alone. I'll make it up to you. I swear I looked at them, one after the other, and for the first time, I didn't feel a rush to jump in and save him. I didn't feel that familiar tug of guilt, the one that had always made me drop everything, rearrange my life around his chaos. Instead, I felt nothing. No desire to help, no need to fix it. Just the emptiness of seeing through it all. I could almost hear the same rehearsed desperation in his voice as I read the texts, the same act, over and over. I clicked open the next text. I don't know what's wrong with you. You're just gonna let me fall apart? I set my phone down, feeling a cold weight settle in my chest. He's been lying to me this whole time, I realized. I grabbed my phone again, opening up social media out of impulse. It took just a few seconds to scroll through, and there they were. Pictures of Darius and his fiancée, Natalie, at some fancy restaurant, laughing, carefree. They looked perfect. A perfect couple, enjoying a perfect night. Not a hint of the financial distress he'd claimed to be in. I zoomed in on the photo, staring at their smiles, at the glasses of wine in their hands. It didn't take a genius to figure out that everything he'd told me about not having enough, about struggling, was a lie. He was fine. He had money to go out to dinner, money to post those damn photos like he was living the dream. I felt my stomach tighten. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just numb. Numb from the years of him pulling me into his problems, pulling me into his mess, while he lived his life like everything was fine. Numb from the years of me believing him, of me sacrificing my time, my money, my energy, and being shown nothing in return. That was it. I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I went to his contact in my phone, my finger hovering over the screen. There was a small voice in the back of my head telling me not to do it, that I was being too harsh, that maybe he really did need me. But the truth was staring me in the face, and for the first time, I felt clear about something. I wasn't going to be dragged into this anymore. I wasn't going to let him manipulate me, not today, not ever again. I hit block contact. There was no dramatic moment, no grand speech, just the sudden sense of finality. His number was gone from my life. And the weight that had been hanging over me for years, the guilt, the responsibility, the constant emotional toll, lifted in a way I hadn't expected. I leaned back against the couch, the phone still in my hand, staring at the blank screen where his name used to be. The relief was overwhelming. I could breathe again. I could think without his voice in the back of my head, always needing something, always demanding more. I wasn't just free from his calls anymore. I was free from the cycle. I was free from the lies. For the first time in a long time, I felt in control. And damn, it felt good. I walked slowly through the house, taking in the familiar sights. My paintings on the walls, the soft cushions on the couch, the way everything now felt more like mine. It was like the clutter of the past had finally been swept away, and for the first time, the place felt like a true reflection of me. The small things stood out in a way they hadn't before. The smell of my coffee brewing in the morning, the books stacked just a little too high on the shelf, the way the light hit the corner of the room in the late afternoon. All the things I had overlooked, pushed aside for so long, now felt important. This was my space. This was my life. I walked into the bedroom, and my eyes landed on the small wooden box. I had carried it with me for so long, trying to make it mean something, trying to give it meaning. It had once symbolized my connection to Darius, my responsibility to him, to my family. But now, it felt like a weight I didn't need to carry anymore. I opened the drawer and gently placed it inside. There was no ceremony, no emotional goodbye. It was just done. His legacy, his family tie, wasn't mine to bear anymore. It wasn't about him, it was about me. I stood there for a moment, my hand on the drawer, letting the silence settle around me. I wasn't going to be the person I'd been for so many years, the one who gave without asking, the one who let herself be defined by her relationship with someone else. Family didn't have to mean obligation. I didn't have to keep sacrificing myself to make others happy, even if it was expected. I was worthy of more than that. Just then, my phone buzzed from the counter. I glanced over at it, then back at the drawer, then out the window. The phone kept ringing, but I didn't move. The buzz felt distant, like it didn't even belong to me anymore. For a second, I thought about answering. Maybe hearing his voice one more time. Maybe explaining why I'd done what I did. But then I realized something. I didn't owe him anything anymore. I had nothing to prove. The phone stopped ringing, and the house was silent again. I looked out the window, letting the quiet settle into my bones. The sun was setting, casting warm light across the room. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew this. I was finally free. Free from the guilt, from the obligations, from the weight of all the things I'd been carrying for years. The life I was creating for myself felt solid, like the ground beneath my feet was finally steady, and for the first time, I wasn't scared. I wasn't looking back, I was looking forward, to the life I'd always deserved. The phone buzzed again, but I didn't look. This time, I didn't need to answer. I had already made my choice, and it felt good.